Did a data mine just give us the reveal date of Diablo 4's second expansion? What do these Chinese characters say? Plus my first hands-on with Season 11's test server. Leveling feels the best it's ever been? Endgame balance? That's another story. I'll break down what slaps, what bricks, and what I hope they revert. Then Path of Exile's Keepers of the Flame update looks massive. 10 new secondary ascendancy classes, 2 new itemization slots to grow monster arms, plus a Deckard Cain in every town. And we've got an update on PoE 2's timeline. Borderlands 4 gets a quality of life win and a Halloween miss. Xbox's profit push explains a lot of recent chaos. Krafton goes all in on AI and what that could mean for last Epoch. Bloodlines 2 stumbles while Outer Worlds 2 and Ninja Gaiden 4 land strong. Hey folks, this is Riker, and I dig into ARPG and gaming news so that you can spend more time playing games. Chapters below to skip ahead to different topics. But before we move on, a word from this video's sponsor, Boot.dev. Boot.dev has gamified learning to code by literally building an online programming course into a fun programming RPG. You complete quests, you gain XP, you level up, you earn achievements, and you can rank on a global leaderboard, all while learning fully at your own pace. Boot.dev believes that the smartest way to learn to code is to ensure you're never bored. With this program, you'll learn the programming languages Python and Go, you'll learn back-end web development from start to finish, and it's designed to get you to write a ton of code since they believe practice is the only way to really learn coding. I took a programming course back in college and it was so boring. They had us programming like grocery lists and tax calculations. In Boot.dev, we're doing fun stuff from lesson 1 by framing it around building a video game. Here's my dashboard. I'm level 9 working on chapter 5. Let's quickly do this assignment together. It wants us to complete this total XP function. And it's telling us that the total XP should be a function of whatever XP is being added plus our level times 100 because there's 100 XP per level. So let's try total XP equals level times 100 plus XP to add and return total XP. Let's try running that. That's looking correct. Let's try submitting. And hooray! And if at any time I'd find myself struggling, I can always consult with Boots, an AI bear wizard that's been trained in every lesson. He won't just give you answers, he'll help you grasp the concepts so you can find the solution yourself. But solutions are also available for every challenge if you just want to see the code that the instructor wrote. So click the link in the description box and use code Riker to get 25% off your entire first year of an annual plan of Boot.dev. Starting with Diablo 4 news, there's been some speculation based on a data mine that we'll be getting an expansion to reveal at the Game Awards in December. When the patch 2.4.2 client was uploaded to the PTR, within the files could be found this image. This is what data miners found. And this says in simplified Chinese characters, "See you on December 12th. The Game Awards happen on December 11th in North America, which corresponds to December 12th in China. Now, personally, I don't think this has anything to do with expansion 2. That's what some people have been speculating. I think it just has to do with releasing a proper Chinese client for Diablo 4. While yes, plenty of Chinese players do play Diablo 4 right now, this happens via VPN, not through official support. It was only this summer that Diablo 4 got its official license for release in China, thanks to Blizzard's renewed partnership with NetEase. This official government-approved version is likely to include censorship of things like skeletons and gore, and will also likely be region-locked, as in they will not be playing on the same server as the rest of us. They're going to have their own separate server just for China, and therefore they're likely to also have pay-to-win microtransactions in there, since those are the norm in Chinese games. Also, StarCraft 2 is officially returning to mainland China on October 28th, joining World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, Overwatch 2, and Diablo 3, so it makes perfect sense for Diablo 4 to join them soon. Now, I already expected an expansion announcement at the Game Awards, because we didn't get the expansion announcement at Gamescom, so the Game Awards is the next most natural place to do it. And so it is possible that we'll get these two announcements side by side. In this case, it's actually possible that expansion 2 may see us traveling to Shanzai, the homeland of Akarat, who, as we saw in Vessel of Hatred, is going to be playing a pretty significant part in the second expansion. And Shanzai is where the Diablo 3 wizard is from, and it's themed based on ancient Chinese aesthetics. So I'm just saying, if you were to reveal a cinematic with Chinese-inspired visuals, it would just be a great opportunity to pair that with the reveal of the Chinese client to get Chinese players extra interested. Meanwhile, the test server for Season 11 has been running since Tuesday and will shut down next Tuesday. So here are my initial impressions. Leveling 1 to 60 was great, possibly the greatest it's ever been, and also the quickest, surprisingly, despite the increase in difficulty. With the removal of Renown, you no longer start off at level 1, giga overpowered with all those skill points. Yes, this did slow down the first 15 levels, but it also made them feel less like just a waste of time. I immediately noticed that monsters are constantly moving and repositioning while attacking. The new champion and elite packs feel great to encounter. And earning back the skill points via the season rank felt like nice little accomplishments. And the capstones, to move on to the next rank objectives, they're awesome. I already liked capstones in the past, but they have implemented all the learnings of the past 2 years to give us varied capstones with different mechanics, some drawn from the Dark Citadel, to challenge us in ways beyond just tougher monsters that deal more damage. And while the low-level leveling was slowed down, the later leveling, like 50 to 60, that's actually now faster than ever. No need to do strongholds anymore, just running Helltide with the season juicing mechanic was fast enough. I do hope they don't nerf those XP globes we get in Helltide. World bosses also give a ton of XP. I got like 8 levels for my first world boss kill. And I think that's totally okay, because you're only going to do 1 or 2 world bosses during your 1 to 60. And it feels freaking awesome to get that instant pop of multiple levels. I really hope they don't nerf this. Now, unfortunately, XP is overtuned from lair bosses and from the summonable Asmodan world boss. Those need to be nerfed for sure, but the scheduled world boss that appears every 3 hours, there's no need to nerf that. No one can abuse it. You know, you can easily level 1 to 60 in 3 hours, which means the fastest players are going to do it in less than 3 hours, meaning they might not even see a world boss at all, so it really harms no one in exchange for awesome feels-good moments for those who do get to experience the world boss. And having Asmodan as a new world boss is great. The scale of him is incredible. I love seeing one of the great evils represented in such a way. My only gripe with the 1 to 60 is that I didn't engage with tempering at all, nor did I really care about my loot drops. I had like only one exciting moment. I got a 2 GA item to drop, but then I realized it's a level 60 item requirement, so I got this item that I can't use for 30 levels, so yeah, for the most part I did 1 to 60 with no real exciting loot moments. Now, it didn't really matter because I was just having so much fun from the leveling progression itself and chasing my skill points in the various objectives, but it does seem weird that a loot-centric game did not have any fun loot moments. Then, once you reach level 60 and start facing torment difficulties, well, that's when you're hit in the face with how much more difficult the game is with the reworks to Masterworking. Now, Season 10 was a power creep season. We were stronger than ever thanks to the season theme. The season powers were ridiculous. The Season 11 theme does not give us more power. It gives us better defense, but defense is never your stopgap to taking on higher difficulties. So we're less powerful in Season 10 because of that, but then we're also less powerful because Masterworking now basically just gives us 20% more damage and 20% more defense. With Masterworking no longer increasing the values of the affixes on our gear, we can juice up on things like attack speed, crit chance, crit damage, cooldown reduction, or our tempered stats like chance to cast twice. Outside of that, quality is just a very dull mechanic in comparison to what Masterworking used to be. The capstone at the end of Masterworking is the only cool thing about Masterworking now, but the cost to masterwork and then the cost to re-roll the capstone makes it something that you'll only be engaging with after a lot of farming, as opposed to something that you can immediately use to start climbing into higher torments. Overall, I felt like I had less agency in ways to empower myself to get to Torment 2 and beyond, and was much more at the mercy of long tail grinds and lucky drops. Getting rank 8 Masterworks on all your gear was relatively cheap before and represented a significant power increase. I think keeping the old Masterworking but changing it so that resetting did not reset the entire item, it only reset the item to the previous Masterworking crit. So like it takes you from 12 down to 8 or from 8 down to 4. I think that would have been simple and an elegant fix. It's fun to hit crits every few levels, right? We don't get excited about going from rank 1 to 2 or, up to 3. It's when you hit rank 4. Ooh, what's the crit going to be? Rank 8. Ooh, what's the crit going to be? That's the dopamine hits. There's no dopamine behind clicking upgrade 10 times until you reach 20 quality. Old Masterworking was just a much more fun system. Then the change in armor and resistances. While I'm sure it helps Giga late game high level balance for pit pushing and leaderboards, it just removes all sense of meaning and purpose to defenses. I have 12,000 toughness. Is that a lot? I don't know. Does the game expect me to have more at this difficulty? I don't know. I have 8,000 armor. Do I need more? I don't know. I have 1,200 physical resistance. Is that enough? I don't know. I mean, if I'm dying, obviously I need more toughness of some kind, but hell, I'd hate to be a hardcore character that has to play Russian roulette to find out if you have enough toughness or if you're about to get one shot. I liked having 1,000 armor and the maximum resistances as clear goals to work towards. If I had 800 armor, I knew I needed to squeeze out 200 more armor somewhere in my itemization puzzle. If I had 100 fire resistance, somehow I knew, I can drop 30 fire resist without lowering my effective defenses. It was just a much more clear, satisfying, and engaging system than, well, I just want all these numbers to go up. The tempering change is overall good. The reduction to 1 tempered affix per item makes it a bit less interesting, and it means that there's going to be a whole bunch of suboptimal tempers now that are never going to get used. But having this determinism is definitely a positive. Then, sanctification. Okay, I think sanctification has a packaging problem, and I think it's too late to fix it at this point. Some people like sanctification, but I see a lot of people seeing it as a new breaking mechanic and complaining about it before they've even engaged with it. The way to look at sanctification is that it is an optional risk-reward mechanic that is likely to not really benefit you. It has a chance to really benefit you, and it has a small chance to ruin your item. Unfortunately, with the way it's been packaged, with it being one of the flagship features of the season, it is the final step in our item crafting journey. It is a gift of power from the high heavens. It feels like it should be something that is almost guaranteed to power up our item. And so from that perspective, the outcome that you're going to get is going to be generally crap, and you're going to be like, well, what the hell? Now, content creator MacroBioBoy ran the math after extensive testing. You have roughly a 1 in 5 chance of getting the null outcome of making your item immune to durability loss. It's not a fun outcome, but it doesn't ruin your item. You have a 10% chance to replace an existing affix, which would probably ruin your item or at least make it worse, because you're probably going to have all the right affixes on this item that you are sanctifying. You have a 1/5 chance to transform one of your affixes into a greater affix. That's a good outcome. You have a 1/3 chance to add a bonus affix, but that only works if you still have greater affix slots available. But that doesn't work if your item is already fully greater affixed. You have a 1/3 chance to add a bonus affix, which can't hurt you. The worst it can be is that the affix is useless to you, which seems fairly likely. And then you have a 15% chance to get an aspect added, which may or may not be useful to you and actually might hurt you, depending on your build. If you have a build that works in a very specific way, like it alters how, resources used, and then an aspect somehow interacts with that in a way that ruins your build, well, now the item is a brick. So, in sum, there's a 10% chance to flat out brick your item, there's a 1/5 chance of a useless outcome, there's a 1/3 chance of a positive outcome, and a 1/3 chance of an outcome that ranges from negative to positive. On the whole, most of the time you sanctify, you will not get an outcome you're happy with, and most of the time you will also not ruin your item. And that by itself is fine. There's nothing wrong with a system that isn't guaranteeing you a good outcome all the time. This is what this kind of Gamba Slam mechanic is intended to be, and we see it successfully implemented in many other games. You pull the arm on the slot machine multiple times, and eventually you win big. You're not going to win every time. That's what makes the win that much more exciting. This isn't a mechanic where you're meant to risk your best item with a 10% chance to ruin it. You're meant to do this with backup gear. You're meant to like stack up like, okay, here are 5 items. I'm going to slam these 5 items and I hope one of them is good. And if none of them are good, that's fine. I was going to throw these in the garbage anyway. But again, that's not how the average player is seeing it. They're seeing it as this is the main mechanic of the season. Why would the angels of the high heavens troll us with some random chaotic garbage affixes? You know, this seems more appropriate for the season of chaos. Like Zaeith, the trickster god, is giving us power. With the right messaging, I think this could have been presented in a way that would not see so many complaints from players. Now, beyond that, I saw one suggestion: replace the whole immune to durability loss outcome with a removes level requirements outcome. At least then, if you get that, the item becomes an excellent item for alt leveling. It's still useless for powering up your main character, so it doesn't make it overpowered in any way. But hey, now at least I got a good alt item. Then beyond that, the pit is more engaging now with the Belial eyes that spawn. There's no more backtracking thanks to that, because interacting with the Belial eyes spawns additional champion packs. Pushing into higher pits, the new enemy affixes can result in a lot more visual noise, but overall they do make things more interesting. I did feel like the affixes made damage very spiky. Basically, either I'm taking no damage or I die instantly to an affix. I don't see the sustain stats that they've re-added in, like life on hit, actually being useful. Oh, and I could swear that I could open doors faster and with less interruption to my Dance of Knives. I'm not 100% on that, but I feel like that's the case. Then the divine gifts for juicing our content. They're great, but you unlock them really fast, and then you equip them all, and then you basically never interact with the system again. I mean, the powers slowly level up, but it's just there in the background doing its thing. I wish there was more to it. More like choices to make, more interaction. It's a nice baseline system. It's a good addition, and I'd rather have it than not have it. It's just like any excitement or interest kind of disappears rather quickly, and then it's just there in the background doing stuff. It's benefiting you, but you rapidly forget that it exists. Now, I haven't tried the tower yet. I'm not the target audience for this content, but I understand that you actually have to damage pylons before you're able to use them, and they're like equivalent to taking out an elite pack. So that sounds a little odd. So overall, lots of good stuff, some stuff that can be improved, and some stuff I hope gets reverted. But that's my feedback. Sound off in the comments with yours, folks. Then in Path of Exile news, we got the reveal of the Keepers of the Flame expansion, which releases October 31st at 12 p.m. PDT, and it's looking awesome. It's a sequel to Breach League that makes improvements on the Breach mechanic while keeping the crowd-pleasing simplicity of kill monsters in circle. A central new mechanic is the Genesis tree, which is both a skill tree and a literal tree that grows branches as you level it up. And this serves as a crafting mechanic because each limb has its own inventory that will spawn items you customize and craft. You can craft special foul-born currencies, which guarantee higher tier modifiers. You can target grow rare items with specific affixes, even unique items. But the coolest thing you can grow are grafts, which are additional limbs that will visibly attach to your body. How freaking cool is that? They serve as an extra item with affixes of their own, giving you both passive buffs and powerful skills. There's 16 types of grafts, each with their own skill, and you can unlock up to 2 graft slots. Of course, there's a bunch of new skill and support gems as usual, but they're also adding 10 bloodline classes, which are secondary ascendancy classes you unlock by defeating specific bosses. These don't replace your main ascendancy, but you do have to split your ascendancy points between your main and secondary ascendancy, however you see fit. Lots of possible combinations here. They're adding 3 new Uber bosses with cool mechanics, tons of quality of life changes like a Deckard Cain style mass identification NPC in every town, as well as asynchronous trade from PoE 2 that was considered a successful test and can come to PoE 1. There's also a rework to the Assassin, Tricksters has multiple new nodes, and all damage can poison is back as a baseline. Also, Heist Rogues will now start at their max level, no more needing to farm them up before properly going on your heists. This expansion is huge. I'm always impressed with just how much new content GGG is able to bring to the game. Meanwhile, in an interview with PC Gamer, Mark Roberts confirms that PoE 2 will most probably release in 2026. He said he would be very, very surprised and beyond shocked if it didn't fully release in 2026, and, quote, I can't ever really say with any certainty because there are just so many variables that keep changing. It certainly is the case that we never intended to be in early access this long. So already we're kind of like, okay, we need to get there, we need to push, we need to get this released. When PoE 2 entered early access on Steam a little less than a year ago, it was expected that it would fully launch within 6 months. As far as I'm concerned though, they can take all the time they need because in the meantime, we still have a solid game to play, even if it's early access. In some Borderlands 4 news, we got this week a patch along with the Halloween event, Horrors of Kairos. And for me, the big highlight of the patch is sorting settings in menus now persist when switching tabs or leaving the menu. Thank goodness. Biggest quality of life update right there. Also, the Lost Loot Machine is getting its logic updated to better prioritize higher quality loot in overflow situations. Nice. Oh, and yes, they nerfed the Jacob's crit knife, which was expected. To be honest, it's a fair nerf. Now, while the patch is a win, the Horrors of Kairos event seems to be deemed pretty lackluster by the player base. I haven't had a chance to play it myself, but players are making comparisons to Borderlands 3 and its Halloween event, which was significantly better and included like a new map, a return of a favorite enemy, event challenges, a rethemed starting screen, basically just felt like a complete holiday package. The Horrors of Kairos event has you just kind of go out in the world and look for world bosses as you normally would, and then when you find them and you enter the zone, the sky turns like orange-red, and you have 2 legendary weapons to farm. That's all there is to it. It's the same world bosses, just a red sky now. And so the frustrating thing for series fans is that Gearbox has delivered great events in the past, so it's not like they don't know how. Hopefully they just didn't have time to put more effort in this time around, and next time we'll get a better kind of holiday event. But to finish up on a positive note, Borderlands 4 has actually become the fastest selling game of the series, or at least in the US. This is as per data from Circana, which states that Borderlands 4 generated 30% more sales revenue in its first month than Borderlands 3 did. That's really surprising to me because just last week we said that Borderlands 3 sold 5 million copies in its first 5 days, while Borderlands 4 had only 2.5 million players within roughly that same amount of time. That tells you that Borderlands 3 sales petered off quickly as negative word of mouth spread about the game, whereas with Borderlands 4, initial consumer reticence was overcome by positive word of mouth. Great to hear because I think the game is a lot of fun. In Xbox news, Bloomberg's Jason Schreier released a report that seems to shed some light on everything that's been going on within the company in recent years. According to Schreier's sources, Microsoft's chief financial officer, Amy Hood, pushed Xbox to deliver a 30% profit margin, which is virtually unheard of in the gaming industry. The average profit margin we see in this sector is 17 to 22%. PlayStation had a 16% profit margin in Q1 2025. Xbox's profit margin over the past 6 years has been between 10 to 20% max. But in fall of 2023, Amy Hood decreed that 30% was the new target. And this was while the acquisition of Activision Blizzard was being finalized. Since then, Xbox has laid off thousands of employees, canceled games that were years into development, shut down studios, raised the price of their consoles and Xbox Game Pass. They even tried to raise the price of its games from $70 to $80, but they backed down from that after public backlash. Now, according to Schreier, there will be a push towards prioritizing cheaper-to-make games that are more likely to drive big revenue as opposed to riskier projects. And it sounds like it's not Phil Spencer, Xbox boss, calling the shots here. It really does sound like these orders are coming down from above him. The Microsoft CFO, Amy Hood, and possibly CEO Satya Nadella himself. Schreier also suggested that Xbox's floundering hardware division may be facing a significant rethinking. Like I've been saying, it looks like Xbox may be looking to exit the hardware game altogether. And former Xbox exec and Blizzard president Mike Ibarra has been letting loose on Twitter recently after the release of the Rogue Xbox Ally handheld, saying, quote, "Only a moron would continue to make console hardware when the games all go or will go third party. To shift, they'd have to go back to exclusive, make great hardware at a loss, and strive to win the living room. That's not their strategy, which is fine, but for some reason they just keep riding the middle, not being clear, doing more harm for no reason. As I said 1,000 times, get a clear strategy and rip the band-aid off and focus on execution. Otherwise, death by 1,000 needles." And in response to Xbox president Sarah Bond calling exclusive games an antiquated model, Ibarra had more to say. Speaking to Mashable, Bond said, quote, "The biggest games in the world are available everywhere. You look at Call of Duty, Minecraft, Fortnite, Roblox. That's actually what's really driving community in gaming. That's where people gather. And the idea of locking it to one store or one device is antiquated for most people." She added that people have grown way past the idea of exclusives. On Twitter, in reply to this, Ibarra said, quote, "Someone go tell Nintendo that exclusives are antiquated." He later added, quote, "Nintendo has continually dominated with outstanding games. Sure, some platforms flopped, but they always took risk and came back very strong. It is the opposite of antiquated. It is risk and return." It just feels like major coping for Bond to say this when her competitors, Sony and Nintendo, are doing quite well and beating Xbox while on a model of exclusives. Obviously, for the consumer, non-exclusivity is better. I'm not going to advocate for exclusives. But if people had truly grown way past the idea of exclusives, then obviously Nintendo and Sony would not be doing so well. Then in some tangential Last Epoch news, Krafton, Last Epoch's new parent company, has put out a statement declaring that they will be an AI-first company going forward, and they're investing the equivalent of $69 billion to make this happen. This will entail a complete reorganization of the company's operational development system, placing AI at the center of problem solving and developing an infrastructure to pursue AI workflow automation. Krafton intends to have this infrastructure operational by the second half of 2026. Apart from Last Epoch, Krafton owns PUBG, Subnautica 2, and Tango Gameworks, the developers of Hi-Fi Rush, who were shut down by Microsoft only to be saved by Krafton, and now this. Now, I'm not going to lie, I think AI can be a very powerful tool when used in the right way and in the right hands. But a tool is something that a human uses, not something that replaces a human. And while I'm very pro-AI on a technological level, I am not in favor of its widespread implementation as a cost-cutting measure to replace human workers in exchange for AI slop results. Now, we have no idea how this will affect Last Epoch, if it'll even affect Last Epoch at all. It very well may not affect the development of the game at all, but it is affecting the culture around the game and the community, because many in the community were already unhappy with the Krafton acquisition, and others were already unhappy with the announcement of an expansion that may not end up being free. And now this, at this point, I feel like Krafton is doing damage to Last Epoch's brand. And I wonder if, in the long run, this acquisition will actually end up being beneficial to the team at all. Everyone loved EHG, the devs, but Krafton seems to be turning away even loyal fans with a new headline every couple of weeks. Speaking of games with loyal fans, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 released this week, and it's sitting at mixed reviews on Steam. On OpenCritic, it has a top critic average score of 63 out of 100, with only 30% of critics recommending the game. Ouch. That's sad. I was hoping this one would be good. I still kind of want to try it out. The consensus seems to be that it's just not a Bloodlines game. It's been stripped of RPG elements and is closer to something like Dishonored, more action assassin game. Maybe if it had been a standalone entry into the Vampire the Masquerade franchise without it being tied to Bloodlines, and it had been marketed more for what it is, it could have seen greater success. But if any of you folks tried Bloodlines 2, what are your thoughts? Sound off in the comments. The Outer Worlds 2 also released this week, and it's being received well by critics. On OpenCritic, it has an average top critic score of 83 out of 100, with 90% of critics recommending the game. Interestingly, though, this game has polarized critics on a number of factors. Things like the story, the companions, the flaw system. It's all very love it or hate it. And honestly, when a game has overall good ratings, I think having polarizing aspects is great. When art evokes contrasting emotions, it means it's taken a stand and is trying to be something rather than just sit on a fence and be a wallpaper that is inoffensive to everyone. Overall, it sounds like if you enjoy Obsidian games, this is another solid Obsidian game. Ninja Gaiden 4 also released this week and is reviewing well. OpenCritic top critic average score is 82 out of 100, with 87% of critics recommending it. It sounds like the combat is great and that this is a solid entry into the series. Now, folks, do be sure to have seen last week's video in which we discussed the new Diablo 4 Season 11 features in full, because that's going to wrap up this video. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to join Riker's Raiders for more gaming content.